I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like if I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We got to lock him up. Politically lock him up.
Doesn't it seem like everything accelerated in the last 10 to 15 years? And maybe this, I mean, most of this, a lot of it goes back to Obama, but then of course Biden's so brain dead, he accelerated things too. I want you to understand, especially if you're young, that that's not a thing that presidents have said before. Joining me now, Alex Marlow, author of the book Breaking the Law, which that's probably one you should probably pick up right about now because we can't forget what they've done. Alex, I know the Russia hoax is dominating the headlines right now, but I really don't want us to move past how evil these people were with the Justice Department and the various means at their disposal while Joe Biden was president.
Yeah, Jesse, thanks again for the support for the book and having me on the show. You start at a perfect spot. Presidents should not say that about the standard bearers of the opposite political party, that we're going to lock them up. I note this in the book. We blew through this because Biden's a idiot and we hate Biden and Biden's stupid. It's just the auto pen. We can't do that. That's not okay. You can't say that we're going to lock up our political opponents in first world countries. If you believe in democracy, you can't stand for that stuff. And Biden did it repeatedly. His entire inner circle believed that Donald Trump would be in jail for the 2024 election. That's a fact. And you could tell because they were the ones orchestrating it. And this is one of the things that I went through in the book. I went case by case with the 6 major cases against Trump. And in every case, there is a deep connection to the White House, to the very top. I'm happy to go into that with you. But your connection to the Russian collusion hoax is important here because the Russian collusion hoax gave rise to the one case that got criminal convictions against Donald Trump, the Stormy Daniels case. The only reason why they got a conviction was because they had testimony and evidence from Michael Cohen, a rat who ratted on his own client, Donald Trump, and they were turned on to Cohen as a potential key witness because of what? The Mueller probe, the Russia collusion hoax, and the DOJ got access to his Gmail. So if we had held people to account for the Russian collusion hoax, there would have been none of the lawfare that was used by Joe Biden's White House to try to rig the election.
Alex, I like to think that people who read your books, who watch this show, are a little bit more in the know than others, and of course they are, but I think most people sat up in their chair when they just heard you say 6 cases. Yeah. I want to hear about it. Yeah. 6 cases?
Yeah, thank you. And this is one of the things, is that unless you're Donald Trump, then were you even aware there were 6 cases? Could you keep the 6 cases straight? I'll tell you, I'm editor-in-chief of Breitbart News. I podcast on a daily basis like you, and I didn't know all the details and which one was which. If you quizzed me before, was this the Stormy Daniels case? Is this the E. Jean Carroll case? Is this a Jack Smith case? I would have known all the details. And I try to do this in a way so lay people can understand the extent of the coordination and the conspiracy that was done by the lawfare superstructure in this country to try to jail and bankrupt Donald Trump in the middle of the election. Let me go through some of the cases with you. Stormy Daniels case. This is the one with Alvin Bragg, where Alvin Bragg brought in a ringer from the DOJ, a guy named Matthew Colangelo, the number 3 guy in Biden's Justice Department, brought him in to a JV job in the Manhattan District Court. This is the same as taking someone from the center field at a Yankee Stadium and telling them to coach Little League and them taking that job. Why would they do this? So there's coordination between the White House and this lower court, and they get the conviction. Fani Willis, the RICO case. Fani Willis, she gets her boyfriend, Nathan Wade, who is a family lawyer, Jesse. He's doing divorces and prenups, and he's on the case. All of a sudden, he's getting 8-hour-a-day White House visits. What do you think they're talking about over there? They talking about divorces? No, they're talking about the Donald Trump case that he's working on. The Jack Smith cases. There are 2 of those. Jack Smith was unconstitutional, appointed by Merrick Garland, but he got to operate with impunity for 18 months, leaking to the Washington Post all the time. A guy he was one of those characters, Jesse, that left the country when Trump won the first time. He went to The Hague to work at the International Criminal Court. He's one of the guys that we're done with America, and he left. They bring him back in order to have an unconstitutional job where he's allowed just to try to destroy Donald Trump for 18 months. When it finally dawns on people, he shouldn't even be here. The E. Jean Carroll case. This is the one where Trump was, it's a defamation case, but they talk about it being some sort of a rape, or maybe it wasn't a rape. That is the most absurd case in the book. I guarantee you when your audience reads my telling of the case, they will laugh at it because it's so absurd. Quarterbacked by Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn billionaire, who is a frequent White House guest, a guy who said Joe Biden could be an effective president into his 90s. He said into his 90s, Biden could be effective. That's the guy who paid for that case. And of course, the Tish James case,
Gentlemen,
which
clear
was in
path.
the White House all the time, et cetera. Chuck Schumer's girlfriend, according to Trump, was actually in charge of that case. She is the most political actor in all of this. It just goes on and on. It's so vast.
It is so vast. It's such a tangled web. And these are stories that I've brought up. I know you obviously write about them all the time at the wonderful Breitbart, but even then you forget because it's a new scandal after a new scandal after a new scandal, and they're all so intertwined. Alex, why wasn't any of this stopped when they tried to do it? Maybe I have an unbelievably naive view of my wonderful country, but I thought we had things put into place so this couldn't happen in the United States of America. Am I just dumb?
Well, this is what the left figured out, and why the Jack Smith appointment is really illustrative, is because they figured out that they can do stuff that's illegal, but it might take 18 months to get sorted out in courts. It takes a long time to do this. Think about, even if you're a true crime fan, think about a murder case you followed where you know the guy did it, but it takes 4 years to get the conviction, and then it takes even longer for the penalties to get served. And the left has understood this, and they have understood that they can shut down the agenda, they can harass people, they can bankrupt people, they can make it so that their lives are ruined with onerous legal proceedings that are incredibly expensive just by merely accusing them of certain things. And this is something that is a hack to the system to try to slow down good people who would rather be at home with their families and not dealing with all this stuff. You have to have someone with unbelievable rhinoceros hide like Donald Trump to survive some of it. It's corrupt, but we have to fight back against it. And it's going to take an engaged citizenry who's going to pressure our lawmakers to make changes and make sure that we're not missing the opportunity to vote out all the bad guys.
Donald Trump, as you mentioned, was convicted. He was convicted in New York. Terrible case. Why can't we undo all that? That was so unjust. Is it just the fact that they control that entire state top to bottom and he's just screwed there?
Yeah. So one of the things that Judge Merchan, who is the left-wing judge in that case, who was a Biden donor, which is illegal, and his daughter was one of the biggest Biden fundraisers, period, raised about $100 million for Democrats during that election cycle. An amazing conflict of interest. I'm shocked that that's legal. It might be legal, which is shocking to me, but it might be. But one of the things he did, which was very clever, is that he upheld the convictions, but he gave the president basically, de facto time served as a sentence to try to discourage an appeal. Trump will appeal this. But I think that detail I gave you earlier, that this would not have happened, this case would not have existed if not for the fake Russian collusion hoax that now we've learned 100 times over was built on nothing. I think just on that alone, it should be thrown out. But it's a process, and it's a process that Donald Trump does not need to go through, but he should, and I think he will, but it's only to save his own name. But we've gotten very comfortable in this country, letting people's names get dragged through the mud and destroyed. There used to be honor here, at least I was told there was, but now there's not. Now you're just allowed to sully people's names with no consequence or repercussions, either personally or professionally.
I wish more people knew the name Lisa Monaco, Alex. It's one of those names that insiders know, political nerds like you and me know, but a lot of people don't. This evil, vile little communist has been worming her way through power in this country for a long time.
Yeah, Lisa Monaco and her right hand, Vanita Gupta, were really the two bad guys in the DOJ. Merrick Garland was sort of a face of it. Everyone says he's a nice guy, and he was in way over his head. Think about it, where he came from. He was a circuit judge in D.C., and he had an office of like 9 people. And then now he's running the DOJ, and he's got over 100,000 employees. He's got far more offices than people he was running. And so he's not really doing it. The people who are really pulling the strings there are Lisa Monaco and the Associate Attorney General, Vanita Gupta. These people are card-carrying members of the Lawfare superstructure. They live to destroy Donald Trump. That's what they were all about. Monaco was a reliable Biden crony. She was overseeing Trump in the J6 cases, trying to bag all the J6 prisoners, which of course I try to go through in the book, all the injustices done to them. That is who she is. She's a part of the institutional left. And I'll tell you, when I talked to Trump about these cases, and which I did on a number of times, he's forthcoming with me, that he thinks she's really the bad guy. Andrew Weissman, who is the main spokesman for all of these anti-Trump lawsuits on cable news, close friend of Lisa Monaco, clear coordination with her and the media establishment that was pushing these illegitimate cases as legitimate.
He's Alex Marlow. The book is Breaking the Law. Go pick it up. We can't let these, we can't forget what these people have done. Alex, thank you, my brother. I appreciate it. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.